So till now we have studied that nucleus was discovered in the Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment, and it was found that the nucleus is a positively charged body, or a positively charged mass is concentrated in a very tiny little space inside the atom. So now it was already established that there were positively charged particles present inside the nucleus, which were called as protons. So now was the question, what are the other particles that are present along with the protons? So to answer those questions, various theories were put forward. The very famous were two theories. First is the proton electron theory, that is, electron is present along with the protons inside the nucleus, and second is the proton neutron theory, that is, neutrons are present along with the protons and they make up a nucleus. So first is the proton electron theory. What was the basis of proton electron theory? That is, what was the reason of thinking that electron is present along with the proton? So it was observed that various nuclei, they emitted electrons from themselves. That is, various nuclei, it was observed that they emitted electrons from themselves. So it was obvious to think that these electrons which are being emitted from the nucleus, these are already present inside the nucleus, and in some suitable conditions they are ejected out of the nucleus. So this was the main basis, that when it was seen that electrons are emitted from nucleus, so it was obvious to think that these electrons are present in the nucleus, and this was one of the reasons that scientists thought that electron is present along with the proton in the nucleus, and this process is called as beta decay. That is, emission of electrons from the nucleus of the atom is called as beta decay, and we will be studying in detail this process in the third chapter of radioactivity. So what were the assumptions that were made by this theory? The very well-known fact that were established at that time were that capital A, that every nucleus, it has a mass number which was equal to capital A. So capital A is an integer and it is the mass number of the nuclei of the atom. And it was also known that the nucleus, it has a particular charge, and the charge on the nucleus is equal to plus times Ze, that is, it is equal to Ze, where Z is an integer. So it was not known till then that there are Z number of protons, but it was known that A is the mass number of the nucleus, and what else was known was the charge on the nucleus is plus Z times E. So the scientists, they thought that there are A number of protons in the nucleus. That is, A is the number of protons that are present inside the nucleus, and this is in contradictory with this proton neutron theory, where the scientists, they assumed that there are Z number of protons. So that part we will be covering in proton neutron theory. So in this proton electron theory, it was assumed that there are A number of protons, and if there are A number of protons, so the charge on those protons will be equal to plus A times E. But it was known that the charge on the nucleus is Z times E. So therefore the scientists, they thought that there must be A minus Z number of electrons present along with the protons inside the nucleus. So if there are A number of protons and A minus Z number of electrons, so the total charge on the nucleus will come out to be equal to plus Ze. So this was the reason, this was how the assumption was made by the proton electron theory. There are A number of protons and A minus Z number of electrons. And the total charge on the nucleus is plus Z times E, and atom as a whole we know that it is neutral. So it was assumed that Z number of electrons, they revolve around the nucleus. That is, if the charge on the nucleus is plus Ze, so to make the whole atom a neutral body, then Z number of electrons must revolve around the nucleus. So these were the assumptions that were made by this theory, that A number of protons are present. So to make the charge on the nucleus equal to Ze, so there must be A minus Z number of electrons present, which will make up the charge on the nucleus equal to plus Ze. So what were the contradictions of this theory? That is, the reasons why this theory was questionable or why it was rejected. So first is the finite size. So this is mainly for the case of heavy nuclei. This contradiction came for the case of heavy nuclei. For the case of heavy nuclei, that is, whose mass number will be very large, so that are called as heavy nuclei. So for that case, if A is the number of protons and A minus Z are the number of electrons in the nucleus, so for heavy nuclei, A will also be very large and A minus Z will also be a very large number. And electrons, we know that the electrons, they have a definite, or they have a particular dimension, that is, they are assumed to be a spherical body, so they have a finite dimensions. So the electrons, they have finite dimensions, and hence when radius is calculated using this proton electron theory, that is, A number of protons and A minus Z number of electrons, they are clubbed together, and when radius of the whole nucleus is found using this theory, then that radius, it came out, it was not equal to the experimental radius. So this was mainly for the case of heavy nuclei, because there will be large number of electrons, and due to the large number of electrons, they will contribute to the dimensions of the electrons will also contribute to the radius, and when radius was calculated in such case, it came out not to be equal to the experimental radius. So this was the first reason why the theory was questionable. Second is nuclear spin. The proton electron theory was not able to explain the nuclear spin. So according to this theory, we know that there are A number of protons and A minus Z number of electrons. So these make up a whole nucleus. Now we know that proton, it is a charged particle and it has an intrinsic spin, and it is a fermion. And the electron, it is also a fermion. Now what are fermions? Fermions are the particles that have half integral spin. That is, they have a spin that is equal to half h cut, or 3 by 2 h cut, 5 by 2 h cut, and so on. And on the contrary to the fermions, there are bosons. Bosons are the particles which have integral spin. That is, the spin will be equal to 0 h cut, or 1 h cut, 2 h cut, 3 h cut, and so on. So the proton, it is a fermion, and electron is also a fermion. The proton has integral, it has half integral spin, that is half h cut, and electron also has half integral spin. Now to understand this concept, you might have done this concept in quantum mechanics, that if there is one fermion, that is a single fermion, then the spin of the whole system is equal to half integral. If there are two fermions, two fermions are present with each with half integral spin, then the spin of the whole system will be integral. If there are three fermions, similarly, if there are three odd number of fermions, then the spin of the whole system will also be half integral. And if there are four fermions, then the spin of the whole system will be equal to integral. So that you can just calculate it. You can take the you can take the individual spin of the fermion and can calculate the spin of the whole system. So according to proton electron theory, there are a number of protons and a minus z number of electrons. So the total number of particles which are present inside the nucleus will be equal to a plus a minus z. That is 2a minus z number of particles are present inside the nucleus according to this theory. So if there are 2a minus z number of particles, so the spin of the total spin of the nucleus must depend upon this number of particles. That is, if 2a minus z is odd number, if 2a minus z is odd number, that is odd number of particles are present inside the nucleus. So you can clearly see if there are odd number of fermions present, then the spin of the system should be half integral. And if the number of particles inside the nucleus is even, then the total spin of the nucleus should be just integral. And this whole concept was in contradiction with the experimental results. Example, we take an example of nitrogen atom or nitrogen nucleus. Now in the nitrogen nucleus, if we take the assumptions that were made by proton electron theory, so according to this theory, for the case of nitrogen nucleus, there must be 14 protons present, and along with 14 protons there must be 7 electrons, that is a minus z, which is 14 minus 7, that is 7 electrons must be present inside the nucleus, and the other 7 electrons should be revolving around the nucleus. So the total number of particles inside the nucleus will be equal to 14 plus 7, which will be equal to 21 particles, that is 21 fermions are present inside the nucleus of nitrogen atom. So if 21 particles are present, which is an odd number, so for odd number the spin of the nucleus should be half integral. So it must be half integral according to this theory. But in the experimental results, it was found that the nucleus of the nitrogen atom, it has integral spin. So this was in contradiction with the experimental results, and this was the second contradiction. The third contradiction was the calculating the magnetic moment of the nucleus. So the magnetic moment of the nucleus, so nucleus is composed of protons and electrons according to this theory. So the magnetic moment of the whole nucleus will be contributed by the magnetic moment of each proton and magnetic moment of each electron. So the magnetic moment of proton, we know that it is equal to EH cut by 2 MP. MP is the mass of the proton, and for the case of electron, the magnetic moment should be equal to EH cut by 2 ME. So this is a formula for the magnetic moment for the case of proton and electron. So what is the difference between the two magnetic moments is the difference in the mass. Here is MP, which is the mass of proton, here is ME, which is the mass of electron, and it is known that mass of the proton is equal to 1836 times the mass of the electron. That is, the proton is 1836 times, it is 1836 times, or it is heavier than the electron. So according to this equation, if you put the value of MP over here, you will find that the magnetic moment for the case of proton, magnetic moment for the case of proton is less than the magnetic moment for the case of electron, because MP is 1836 times mass of electron. So the magnetic moment of proton will be 1 divided by 1836 times the magnetic moment of the electron. So magnetic moment for the case of proton is very less as compared to the mass, as compared to the magnetic moment of electron, and this is due to the fact that proton's mass is very large as compared to the mass of the electron. So if the nucleus is composed of protons, if the nucleus is composed of protons and electrons, so the magnetic moment of the whole nucleus is equal to the magnetic moment of all the protons plus the magnetic moment of all the electrons. So the magnetic moment of the nucleus will be sum of the magnetic moments of each particle. So from this concept, it is clear that the magnetic moment of the nucleus will be very large as compared to the magnetic moment of a single proton, because here we have electrons and magnetic moment of electron is very large as compared to the magnetic moment of proton. So if we take the sum of all these magnetic moments, the resultant magnetic moment of the nucleus will come out to be very large. But experimentally it was found that the magnetic moment of the nucleus is very less than magnetic moment of electron. So this was in contradiction with the experimental results, because according to this theory, the magnetic moment of nucleus should be very large as compared to the magnetic moment of a proton, because there are electrons and magnetic moment of electron is large as compared to proton. So if you sum up all the magnetic moments, it should be very large. But according to the experimental results, it was found that this magnetic moment for nucleus is very less than the magnetic moment of electron. So this was the third contradiction. Fourth contradiction was the energy of the electron inside the nucleus, which was calculated by wave mechanical consideration. So here we calculate the energy of the electron if it is present inside the nucleus. So this is calculated from the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which is delta x, which is the uncertainty in position of the particle times the uncertainty in its momentum, is of the order of h cut. H is the Planck's constant, and h cut is equal to Planck's constant by 2 pi. So this is given by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So we will apply this principle to the case of electron if it is present inside the nucleus. So what will be delta x in this case for the case of electron if it is present inside the nucleus? So delta x is the uncertainty in position. If the electron is present inside the nucleus, it can be present anywhere inside the nucleus. So uncertainty in position will be equal to its diameter of nucleus. So uncertainty in the position of the electron will be equal to the diameter of the whole nucleus, as the electron can be present anywhere inside the nucleus. So the diameter of the nucleus is equal to, or you can say radius of the nucleus was found from the Rutherford's experiment. It is of the order of 10 power minus 14 meters. So the diameter of the nucleus will be equal to 2 times 10 power minus 4. So from here we can find the value of delta P, that is uncertainty in momentum. This will be equal to h cut divided by delta x, and this is equal to h cut divided by 2 into 10 power minus 14 meters. So we evaluate this and we get the result as delta P is equal to 0.527 into 10 power minus 20 and its SI units. So this is the value of the uncertainty in momentum. Now what will be the momentum, actual momentum of the electron? So the momentum of the electron will be not less than its uncertainty. So it will be at least equal to delta P. So the momentum of the electron will also be equal to this value. So from here we will be finding the energy of the electron. So the energy is given by this expression, E square is equal to P square C square plus M naught square C power 4. So this equation you might have seen in special theory of relativity. So E is the total energy of the particle, P is the momentum of the particle, and M naught is the rest mass of the particle, that is the mass of the particle when it is at rest. So M naught is the rest mass and M naught C square is the rest mass energy. It is the rest mass energy of the particle, and for the case of electron, this energy is equal to, that is the rest mass energy of electron is equal to 0.511 mega electron volt. So for the case of electron, this second term is very less as compared to P square C square term, and hence this term can be neglected only for the case of electron as its rest mass energy is very less. So from here we can find the energy of the electron, which will be equal to P times C. So energy of the electron in this case will be equal to, the momentum of the electron is 0.527 into 10 raised to power minus 10 times the velocity of light, which is 3 into 10 raised to power 8 meters per second. So this energy will be in joules. Since we are using SI units, so the energy will be in joules, and when you will convert this in mega electron volt, this will be approximately equal to 10 mega electron volt. So 1 electron volt is equal to 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 joules. So the energy of the electron when it is if it is present inside the nucleus, it comes out to be equal to 10 mega electron volt. But it is observed that the electron's energy when it is emitted from the nucleus is never greater than 4 mega electron volt. That is the maximum energy of the electron which are observed till now. The energy of those electrons is never greater than 4 mega electron volt. So here the proton electron theory, it was suggesting that if the electron is present inside the nucleus, its energy must be equal to of the order of 10 mega electron volt, whereas this was the experimental result that the electrons that are emitted from the nucleus, their energy is never greater than 4 mega electron volt. So this was a contradiction with this theory. So last contradiction was the Compton wavelength. Compton wavelength for any particle can be calculated from the formula of h divided by m times c, where h is the Planck's constant, m is the mass of the particle, and c is the velocity of light. So the theories, some of the theories, they say that a bound fundamental particle or a bound particle, it cannot be localized in a region which is smaller than its Compton wavelength. That is, any particle, it cannot be localized in a region, in a particular region. It cannot be confined in a particular region whose dimensions are less than its own Compton wavelength. So let's find the Compton wavelength for the case of electron, and then we will check if it is possible for this electron to be present inside the nuclear dimensions. So the Compton wavelength for the case of electron, it comes out to be equal to 242 into 10 raised to power minus 14 meters. This is the Compton wavelength for the case of electron. That is, you put over here mass of the electron, which is 9.1 into 10 raised to power minus 31 kg. So you put all the constant values and calculate the Compton wavelength for the case of electron, and it comes out to be equal to 242 times that of the times of the nuclear radius. Now you see 10 power minus 14 is the nuclear radius. So for a particle to be present inside the nucleus, so its Compton wavelength must be less than that of the nuclear dimensions. For any particle to be present inside the nuclear dimensions, the Compton wavelength of that particle should be less than the dimensions of this nucleus. Whereas over here we have calculated Compton wavelength for the case of electron and it came out to be 242 times that of the nuclear radius. So hence it was proved that electron cannot be present inside the nucleus. So this was the last contradiction. In the next lecture we will be discussing the assumptions of and the various successful. We will be discussing the assumptions of proton-neutron theory and how this theory was successful. So that will be covered in the next lecture.